Good evening, guys. Warm welcome to the program on warehousing and inventory management. This is our ninth session. If you're watching this for the first time, request you to go back to the previous episodes. These are all free sessions as of now. You will have a better understanding if you have seen the previous session. So we are going in a sequence as per the warehouse processes and best practices. So today we are going to see one more important process and allow me to attach the screen. Today we are going to see an important topic on warehouse layout. Warehouse, when we talk about warehouse, this could be a store attached to a manufacturing plant or a separate standalone warehouse or a distribution center or a fulfillment center. So when we prepare the layout, there are a lot of external as well as internal factor which has to be considered. For example, selecting a particular location depends upon so many external factors like incentive from the government, infrastructure availability, maybe connectivity related issue, availability of the skilled labor, all that matters in selecting the location of the warehouse. But in this session, we are going to see having selected a particular warehouse, what are the points which has to be taken care while designing a proper warehouse. The idea is the product has to move smoothly inside the warehouse, so you have to give different treatment for different category of product, which we will see in this session. Of course, since this being a live session, if any one of you interested in any clarification, you are always welcome to type in the data live chat so that I can respond. Before we dive into the topic, let me briefly introduce you. My name is Pattabhiraman. This is my Udemy profile. I have more than 4,000 candidates enrolled in Udemy for various supply chain program. You can visit the Chai site and check the various program. I am. This is my LinkedIn profile. My keyword is supply chain master. Of course, you can see various certification below my name. These are all globally recognized certification in supply chain, logistic, and procurement. And you are always welcome to connect or follow me in LinkedIn or subscribe to my channel in YouTube. And these type of sessions is exclusive in YouTube and available for free viewing for a limited period. So let me introduce about the warehouse layout designed for future whilst building a warehouse. So continually evolving products and changing order profile requires warehouses to be highly flexible. Whereas investing for a long time, huge investment not only in the warehouse space but also material handling and other infrastructure requirement will have to be invested. But you have to take care that this design is flexible enough to accommodate any changes in the product or changing demand, so that maybe sometime fast moving may become slow moving and slow moving may become fast moving. So that's the reason why the warehouse design has to be totally flexible. The most optimal design in their view is one that fully meets today's operational requirement but has an eye for future growth. So you should be able to accommodate any changes which may happen in the coming months or year. Going next, design pre-planning. Gather as much as data possible, because once you arrange the internal setup, for example, putting up the racks and other thing, once again changing the layout or arranging the item becomes difficult. Possibly, at least you should take care of next 6 months or 1 year requirement. So the necessary data has to be collected and proper analysis has to be made. We will see what kind of analysis has to be done. Concentrate on cubic capacity of the building. Normally, if the warehouse is located in an urban location, then it's not only the floor space we are going to consider, but the vertical height. Nowadays, not only 10 meters, even the very tall warehouses are available, and accordingly, the handling equipment can also be designed. So, in the warehouse, we are going to consider the cubic capacity of the building, designed to have coherence to existing or proposed material handling design. Why design is given so many importance is all the related material handling equipment should also be designed. If you going to use the existing one, then it has to accommodate its design. Consider health and safety of the staff. When we talk about health, possibly dust and noise and other polluting equipment, environment has to be condensed. And safety, especially in the warehouses, there are a lot of moving material handling equipment like overhead crane or forklift, and this is one of the area where you can have a lot of accidents. So you should take care of all the safety precaution, provide the necessary layout or width so that these vehicles can pass, and there is a clear visibility for the operator as well as visitors. Coming to the other lean requirement is minimize the amount of movement. So ideally speaking, item should come and move to the customer like in a cross-dock operation. But wherever it is not possible, you need to store them for a small amount of time, and there also you should properly locate the item in a proper location so that the movement of the pickers or put away executives are as at the minimum level. Also plan for outside the building. So what you are going to either material storage or even vehicle parking or employees parking, all this should be considered if it is a standalone warehouse or a distribution center. Coming to the data collection and analysis, profile needs to include whole product range, number of items per line, the sizes and throughput for each product code. So possibly this data may be available in your ERP, but one problem could be the sizes or the weight of the product may not be readily available in all organization. So if you are taking care of that, then it is very fine. Number of supplier deliveries per day, same for the customer. How many time you are receiving item, or how many truckload or pallet load, same towards the customer. How many vehicles are getting loaded and dispatched to the customer. Identify and isolate or eliminate obsolete item. This is where we are going to do FSN analysis. Okay, fast, slow and non-moving item, and you have to remove the non-moving item periodically and allow more space for other type of item. Possibly you should also provide suitable location of fast moving item, whereas slow moving item can be given a second priority. This is where collecting the data is important, on both from supply side as well as demand side. If you have the data for last 6 months or 1 year, that will help. Otherwise, you need a forecast from the respective function to do this very effectively. Coming to the major floor area consideration, the one on the supply side could be receiving area. Second is a quarantine or inspection area when an item is rejected or on hold. We use this word quarantine for a very long time in a warehouse function. So you need to provide a suitable isolated place for such item. Reserve storage area. Suppose if you are getting regular or extra material, you should have a primary storage as well as secondary storage. Then pick area, you need area, then value adding the service area. Possibly in many of the distribution center and fulfillment center, there are many value adding activity takes place. For example, kitting or labeling or assortment of merchandise. All this takes place in the value adding position. Then finally, you have packing and dispatch area. Of course, these are main primary areas in any warehouse. Then you need to consider empty pallet, packaging, material handling, storing, and charging area. With this is missed out in most of the layout, then you will have a lot of problem. One more area could also be return products. Maybe customer has returned some item for which you need to do a process, maybe like repairing or refurbishing before putting into stock. So separate area should be available. Coming to the design consideration, how to accommodate for peaks for any business. We have a seasonal sales. So if you are getting item in advance for different season, then also possibly there are some sales promotion or advertising going on. So some period of time you may have a excess demand. In such case, you need to be flexible to store extra items. If the duration of the peak period is short and the ratio of peak to average is high, then it is worth considering temporary storage and labor. Because if it is only for a short period, you can hire possibly a small warehouse, or you may consider storing outside the warehouse with proper protection. There is a thumb rule for calculating the space. You need to consider receipt and dispatch area. Maybe sometime it is overlooked in favor of a storage area. We don't keep any reserve space for these kind of item. A congested dock area can result in arrival and departure delays, loss or misplaced product, incorrect dispatches, and damage to the items. Add working and travel space, and this space is determined by the type of forklift or pallet truck you are going to use. This is where we need to simultaneously decide what kind of racking system, material handling system we are going to use, and how we are going to store this item inside the warehouse. Will it be stored in a bin or a pallet or a similar such setup? We should be clear. Then only we can design. Once again, we have seen in earlier sessions, the pallets also comes with different sizes. So you should finalize that. Based on that, the rack dimension as well as the material handling devices can also be designed. We have a thumb rule formula, no straight rule. The required pace is approximately equal to number of loads into hours to unload divided by time of the shift into number of pallets and space per pallet. Maybe possibly if you are working in a warehouse for a long time, you may approximate this equation. But if you are a beginner or at the initial training stage, maybe you can use this as a thumb rule. You can see the calculation given here. Roughly you can find out, but of course you need the data to arrive at this space. If past history is not available, then at least some forecast should be available. Coming to the storage space, each item needs to be evaluated and a table is produced to record different item property. We will see what kind of table we are talking here. Having calculated the amount of items stored per product line, and you should convert everything to a pallet quantity. It should be possible to calculate the number of pallets. Finally, most of the warehouses they store the item in the pallet as it is a basic form of unitization, either for storing or handling. and you should be in a position to tell your cubics of capacity in terms of number of pallets you are able to receive into warehouse or store into warehouse and dispatch the item. For example, I can always say our warehouse has a capacity to store 10,000 pallets, possibly 2,000 pallets every day are receipt and dispatch like that. So we generally talk in terms of pallet space. Depending on weight and crushability, it is likely that pallet height will vary. You should also be careful that pallet cannot be stored directly one above the other because of this crushability factor. So generally, what you see in the image is the kind of a rack is used generally. This is gives you some estimated calculation for the storage space. For example, this as the data on item code, total number of carton you are going to store, and each carton dimension in terms of length, width, height, and the way to I see this kind of data is missing in most of the organization. They do a rough estimate, then they struggle later on. You need to know the dimension of the item which you are going to store. Are you going to store in a pallet or a carton, and what will be the estimated size and the weight of this item? Many times these are overlooked, but this could be a problem later on. Then cartons per pallet, we also use the term T high. T high is nothing but cartons per layer and how many layers high. So all this data or design thinking should come in the initial stages. Then pallet weight, pallet height, and the number of pallets. Based on this, finally you are arriving at number of pallets for each of the SKUs. So if you are handling 58,000 SKU, you should know how many pallets are required to store, depending upon inventory control or planning. Okay, so you can see each of the pod code you can arrive, and then total up you need 1,000 pallets, for example, storage pallet, and design the system as per that. Also, storage method option you can see considering the handling method. Either you may use counterbalance forklift truck or a powered pallet truck. And what is the characteristic of this each item? Pallets in a store, how many total pallets is required? And one more important thing is you should know each item SKU, whether it's a fast, medium, or slow mover. Then order quantity, possibly for the dispatch or even a supply, you should know whether a customer are going to order in terms of pallet or will it be loose item like a carton. Then the plan has to be different. Okay, then comes stackable, whether you can keep it one above the other without support of any rack. The storage method, handling method, and any other remarks can be stored in this data. So this is important part of analysis pre-design space. Okay, unless you do have a data, you cannot do a proper layout design. A similar table can be produced to determine the size of pick face location, taking into account of average and maximum amount of product dispatched per day. We call this as a slotting process. Okay, where do you want to keep the item? For example, fast moving item or the item which is heavier or lighter. All this has to be considered. The idea is to make sure that there is no replenishment while picking. This can lead to safety issue if you are doing parallelly replenishment as well as picking. Other factors in the design, it is agreed that the storage utilization exceeds 85%, then productivity and safety decline. So in all warehouse design, some extra buffer space has to be kept in case you also need a flexibility and also sufficient space for maneuvering the vehicle. All this must be taken care. Presence and location of the roof column in any warehouse. This could be endurance for free movement. So designing should also take care of this. Space between the pallet and the side of the pallet. So some little space should be available to access. Maybe you are lifting an item and reaching the pallet behind the front aisle. And presence and location of the sprinkler. Here we are talking about fire protection equipment. So many times the water sprinklers are mounted on the roof. So there should be sufficient clearance space between the roof or the sprinkler or even electrical lighting system and the top of the rack. This must be taken care in the design. And the type of lighting, you should be very careful on this, because either material handling equipment or the picker should not touch any of this, because there is always a heat when there is a high power lighting. Lift height of forklift truck. Of course, all this comes with the various design. Depending upon height of warehouse and height of racking, you can also design the size of the forklift lift. The aisle width, how much is the space you are going to provide? It all depends upon whether you are what kind of mechanized equipment you are going to use it. When we call this width, this is the distance between the pallets in the adjacent rack. Of course, when you are using the forklift, you have to consider the turning radius. Okay, it is not only the length or width of the forklift or any such devices. You need to consider the turning radius, which will be provided by the manufacturer. And you can see a sample image where the width is different for different handling position, handling equipment. And this has to be decided earlier stages, what kind of material handling equipment you are going to use. Of course, you need to have other kind of spaces like packing, value-added service, and return processing. There should be a plan whether you are going to do this activity or no. You have to resolve some small space. Of course, most of the warehouses are going to handle packing, and in case of a fulfillment center, value-added services, of course, it's going to happen. And nowadays, more and more return processing is also going to happen. You need to have a area to store, recharge, and change the batteries of these material handling equipment. Of course, you also need a parking area when material handling equipment is not in use. Area for storing empty pallets and drop machine. And most of the time we get into problem because of these such issues in a warehouse. The space is cramped, and it leads to a lot of safety issues. Possibly the management would have approved if you have highlighted these issues in the beginning before the design of the layout. If you are not considering proper parking place or charging areas, then you may end up into problem. Possibly even storing empty pallets or bins, you should have a proper space. Coming next to the areas outside the warehouse is also important, depending upon number of vehicles you are going to receive or dispatch. And do you need any parking areas? If you are receiving more number of vehicles, then you should also have proper yard management system, and a sufficient number of dock and dock levelers are required to manage the timing and queuing of the vehicle. Sufficient turning circle for the largest vehicle. Suppose if you are trying to get or dispatch item using trailers or using a 40 feet container, the outside area should provide the turning radius for this kind of vehicles. Of course, wastage storing and recycling area should be considered outside the premises and it should not get mixed with the regular item. Gas or diesel storage tank, and depending on MHA use. Possibly large organization may have this storage tank, diesel or other gasoline storage tank, but may not be for small or medium size warehouses. Some few samples of layout is provided here. Possibly for being a warehouse professional, you should know how to, considering this factor, use some layout drawing tools. For example, AutoCAD can be one of the tools, but other tools like slotting softwares are available where you can fix how many slots are required after you do complete analysis. Okay, the most popular could be U flow, where the material enters on one side and goes inside the warehouse and comes out for the dispatch. And you can also see here the FSN analysis being used for designing. So high fast moving item near to receipt and dispatch area, medium usage next, and low usage item on the other end. You can also see the space for any battery charging, sortation. Of course, you also see empty pallets and quality or quarantine area. And if you have a cross-dock facility, you need no need to store this item, so it can be directly handled in the incoming and outgoing areas. The other simplest form could be straight line flow. You are receiving goods on one side and dispatching on the other side. It may or may not be possible in all the cases, so you need to check the feasibility depending upon type of products, how many days you need to store. Okay, this is where the analysis comes into picture. Coming to the warehouse space optimization, there are some potential options. Change the type of storage medium or material handling equipment used, say for example, from single to double deep racks, drive-in racks, narrow aisle racking, or articulated forklift truck. Of course, each one of this, if you go to YouTube and start typing, you will get the video of all this material handling equipment. Consolidation of stacks wherever possible, because many times we have these warehouses in urban centers where the cost per square feet is very expensive. So you need to find out various ways in which you can reduce the space requirement. Okay, possibly you can also reduce beam height to accommodate smaller full or part load. So in many cases, when you're handling a fixed storage location, whether you have the product in full quantity or off the quantity, you are occupying the full space. So possibly some flexibility in the rack design should be possible so that we can move either up or lower the beam height. And one more important thing could be you can move to a random location storage. Of course, you need a IT tool like WMS to handle this requirement. Temporary storage in containers outside, for example, if you have a huge item and security is not a big issue, you can hire this kind of movable portable containers and store this item. Of course, this has to be a temporary storage. Okay, so we have come to the end of today's session. As this is one of the many sessions, you are requested to watch all the session and benefit. If you need a certificate for this program, like warehousing and inventory management, it is possible, but you have to take one online multiple choice questions. The basic requirement is you have to subscribe to our YouTube channel, watch all the videos, like and comment in all the videos. That's where we can subsidize only the examination fees. We will issue a e-certificate, and this exam fees is very very nominal. Of course, you need to contact us for more detail. If you need further information, you are welcome to visit our sites, as well as you can see the WhatsApp number available here. And we do lot of globally recognized program like supply chain analytics, which is very popular across the world. Nowadays, if you need a job in good organization with a good pay package, you need two things. One is supply chain analytical knowledge, and another one is a global certification, like for example, AFIX. Okay, the employer look for these two things in deciding to take any candidates. Of course, for any career advice, you are welcome to reach to me in any of this number. Any one of you watching live, if you need any doubts, you are always welcome to chat in the Facebook, YouTube chat. I hope this kind of session will benefit for the people. Either you are looking for a job in this domain, or trying to improve your performance in the current job, because working in a warehouse is a very high pressure job. Also, it involves managing unskilled labor, and customer on the other side want the item to be delivered, so you have to maintain inventory accuracy, handle a lot of unskilled labors, at the same time show productivity to the management. Okay, we will continue in our next session. Thanks for watching. Bye. Have a nice evening.